Today's episode of the Presleevables is brought to you by Tales of Adventure.
First of all, you're going to want to head over to toamagic.com. That's the website for Tales of Adventure, where you can find the best deals on singles and seal product from standard releases all the way up to vintage. For the higher end cards, those cards come with individual scans, so you can actually see the card that you're purchasing before you make a decision. Also, be making sure to follow at TOA Michael on Twitter. That's the handle for the store owner, Michael Caffrey. He regularly posts sales and deals throughout the week, so you're going to be wanting to follow that account as well. Lastly, make sure to use promo code Resleevables at checkout for 8% off any order, and keep in mind that all domestic orders are shipped with free tracking. Again, that's toamagic.com, at TOA Michael on Twitter, and use promo code Resleevables at checkout for 8% off of your order.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Presleevables for Wilds of Eldraine. Cedric Phillips at Cedric A. Phillips and all the things. I'm your host, Patrick Sullivan at Basic Mountain on Twitter. He's the most, and we have already gone through, if you haven't watched it yet, the mechanics. We did white, we did blue, we did black, which means now it's time to dive into some red cards here in Wilds of Eldraine. Now, as always, I'm over here making a list for competitive play. He's over there making a list for
Designs I like.
Okay.
I don't know how else to really put it. You know, the designs that speak to me as a game designer, which can mean a lot of different things.
Yes, it can.
Novelty, story, solving play pattern stuff, whatever. Some cards will be strong, some not so much. I'm trying to ignore that as much as possible and just pick out the designs that speak to me.
So these red cards are a little all over the place. We got like rats, we got knights, we got mice, we got elementals. Mm-hmm. Red kind of celebrates everything. So let's just dive in here. I'm starting with an elemental. I'm actually starting with technically an adventure card. It is Hearth Elemental and Stoke. Is it Stoke Genius? It is Stoke Genius. Okay, so let's begin. Hearth Elemental is a 6-mana elemental, 5 and a red. It is a 4/5, and this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard that are instant cards, sorcery cards, and or have an adventure. So really this could cost single red. Okay. Stoke Genius is 1 and a red, sorcery. This is the adventure portion of the card. Discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. So, look, this card's a little weird because there are certainly going to be circumstances where you're empty-handed or close empty-handed, and you're like, cool, discard this, draw 2 cards, don't mind if I do ski. And there's also going to be situations where this is a single red or like 1 and a red 4/5. I don't know how often that's going to come up, though it does seem like it would come up more in older formats.
Definitely. And there's sometimes where you're going to get all that in one turn.
Yes.
Because once you adventure it, it's not like your hand has to be empty or there's some weird condition on playing the thing. Now we're just looking at your graveyard.
Yeah.
So if you get to the spot where you're empty-handed, you go red 1, draw 2, and now could be single red or whatever.
Yeah. Like, I don't think... Look, I don't know if it's worth the deck building cost here, but what I was going to say is I don't think it's impossible to play this on, like, the second turn of the game. It's more likely to play it on third turn of the game in older formats. But when you toss in cards like Consider and your Thought Scours of the world and things that make like Murktide Regent really good, kind of falls underneath the same camp, really.
For sure. And also those decks occasionally have problems of running out of action.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about more in sort of the Arclight Phoenix, you know, I'm emptying out my hand as fast as possible, running out of gas sort of stuff.
Yep.
The Stoke Genius element of this could be particularly useful for that style of deck.
Yeah, so not every adventure card do I like both sides of the puzzle, but I like both sides of the puzzle here quite a bit, and so that's why Hearth Elemental made my list at number 5. Number 5 for you, it's Grabby McGee. It's Grabby Giant, 3 and a red for a 4/3 with reach, and you can pay 2 and a red, so 3 mana, to sacrifice an artifact or a land to draw a card. But there's an adventure aspect to this card as well, and it's called That's Mine. Fun name there. 1 and a red, so a 2 mana instant, create a treasure token. What are we digging about this?
So this is a collection of random stuff, but it is a cool collection of random stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. The adventure is a 2-cost instant, and this costs 4. So I can go, surprise, surprise, end of your turn on turn 2, make a treasure, untap, cast this.
Yep.
A 4/3 reach has an interesting blend of offense and defense built into it. And the sacrifice an artifact or land to draw a card also has an interesting blend of offense and defense to it. I'm sacking my lands if my deck's relatively cheap, and if I have extra useless stuff as the game drags on, or in response to removal of my artifacts, I can draw cards that way. So there's really no wrong answer to how to approach the card, but it's just a very interesting and well-crafted collection of stuff that I think will play pretty well.
This is all totally fair, but this is kind of what you've alluded to during our mechanics episode, where it's like you wouldn't play any of these cards on their own, but together, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy for this to make a constructed deck.
I mean, I'd be pretty surprised unless the treasure incentives were out of control.
Sure.
This is just
bargain, baby.
I don't know. The body seems so modest to me. This feels more like a limited card, but I do like the collection of stuff that's going on here, even though it reads kind of random.
We're going to go to number 4 for me, which is also number 3 for Patrick. So we're going to get both of these done right now. It is Song of, my first time with a difficult pronunciation, Totentans is what I'm going to go with. Someone will tell me it's wrong in the comments. Sorcery. Create X/1/1 black-red creature tokens with this creature can't block. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. All right. Well, for me, the competitive side of things, I don't know. You're just flooding out, draw this, bang. Probably kill you, or hopefully kill you. There is also the small thing, which just doesn't come up like a lot, but I don't know. Maybe sometimes you need single red to give all your creatures haste.
I was going to say, that's an interesting element to this, is single red give everything haste would be a thing to think about.
Yeah.
And it's sort of hidden in this card because you're thinking about casting, 5 rats, and then if I have a mana left over, like how do I have mana left over to play this and another thing and give that thing haste?
Yeah.
And the answer is single R, give everything haste, is its own reward, its own thing to be doing.
It might be okay.
Yeah.
Might be okay. So, yeah, this is pretty, to me, it's like kind of straightforward. This is maybe the kind of card you want against a control deck. But, there'll be circumstances where you just maybe want this in a deck where it's like, hey, all I care about is making as many creature tokens as possible. Like, if you remember the card, I think it was Intangible Virtue, which was like +1/+1, and then Vigilance for all your creature tokens. Now, obviously, this can't block. But, I don't know, if you just are looking for decks to put a critical mass of just token creatures on the battlefield, boom, you found a card to do it.
I love this assign. It seems just extremely fun to me. There's also a couple issues with Fireball experience of just expelling someone out that this solves. One is it's really not interactive, and this is way more interactive because you get to block or interact with an instant speed sweeper, whatever it is. Another issue with the Fireball experience from the player side who has Fireball is there's often this wait until it's lethal, now play it.
Yep.
This is very much not that. You could be casting this thing on turn 4 for 3 if you think it's likely that your rats are going to continue to connect over the following turns, or you have something to sacrifice them to for value. You don't really care.
Yeah.
So there is the splashiness and excitement of Fireball, and sometimes it will effectively be Fireball. This is lethal a lot of the time. The Fireball would be lethal, but there's way more interaction points on the other side, and there's way more incentive to play the thing for not lethal earlier on in the game. Plus, it's just more rats. Fun stuff.
We like rats here in the Presleevables. We're a big fan. We're gonna go to number 4 for you. This is not a rat. This is a dragon. Realm Scorcher Hellkite. 6 mana, 4 red. Creature dragon as mentioned. 4/6. Okay. This is a mythic rare. All right, what do we got here? Bargain, flying haste. When Realm Scorcher Hellkite enters the battlefield, if it was bargained, add 4 mana in any combination of colors. That's a lot. And then you can pay 1 in a red, so 2 mana, and Realm Scorcher Hellkite deals 1 damage to any target. All right, so it's like kind of a weird like mana fixture, double spelling dragon that at the very least you can use the mana to like deal 2 damage to something.
Yeah, a lot of fun stuff here.
Okay.
So the bargain plus mana story definitely speaks to treasure without calling out treasure.
Yep.
This feels like you're breaking open some piece of treasure on the dragon's treasure hoard and unlocking some magical power out of it.
Sure. Okay.
So that's awesome. I also like that this is an enabler for celebration that isn't a super a lot of this enablers for Celebration are naturally going to be cards that are super cheap or cards that themselves play two things.
Yep.
That's going to be all over the place. This speaks to that without it calling out the enablers in the way that all the other cards do. This is giving you a burst of mana, and it's mana fixing. And if you have a second thing going on, it shouldn't be too hard to play a card or to play a card with Celebration and another card in whatever the thing is all in one turn.
Yep.
So I like that it enables that stuff without calling it out the same way that a lot of the other cards do. And then lastly, you have the pinging effect, which one gives you some floor for what the 4 mana looks like.
Yep.
It's not nothing if you don't have another card to play. And 2 means that even though it's flying haste, and a lot of flying haste cards are super immediate in their impact, there's a lot of pressure for the opponent to interact with this thing the following turn. And it's fairly modest in terms of the turn it comes in question, because it's only attacking for 4 and maybe pinging for 2. If you really just want to get haste and power, you can do a lot better than that.
For sure.
It's the implication of the following turn that makes this card potentially powerful or worth considering in a deck. And that's not an easy thing to land on a big haste dragon.
It's also pretty, I mean, like most of these dragons that cost like 6 mana, like they're pretty big. But this one, 4/6, so it plays defense pretty well too.
Yeah. And that's also, it's kind of nice to have that defense option on a card with bargain, because when you're behind, it's probably going to be harder to bargain. So you would want to hang back on defense. Therefore, the whole collection of stuff is just, it is in some ways better at blocking than attacking the turn in question. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing you would want to do in the spots where bargain is harder to enable.
Let's go to number 3 for me. I'm going to do a little torching of the tower. Single red, instant. It's got bargain as well. Torch the tower deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If this spell was bargained, instead it deals 3 damage to that permanent and you scry 1. If a permanent dealt damage by Torch the Tower would die this turn, exile it instead. So we've seen plenty of single red effects that kill creatures or wear down planeswalkers or maybe outright kill them, whatever. And then we've also seen some that get a little bit better if you satisfy something. The first card that comes to mind is, I think it's Wild Slash. Mm-hmm. If you're ferocious, I think it deals 3.
Yeah.
So it does, yeah. So we've seen plenty of cards like this.
Fiery Impulse, another example.
Yeah, so we've seen cards like this before. You have to, of course, satisfy the bargain cost, which presumably you'll be able to do. No guarantee, of course. So that means there are some deck building restrictions there, or you have to consider this in deck building if you do want to deal 3. And also, if you're going to lose a permanent with the bargain aspect of things, getting scry 1 as part of the deal is not so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another really good execution of, bargain sort of demonstrating the natural diminishing returns. You look at spell mastery. It's not like Fiery Impulse is ruining anyone's time, but something with the spell mastery cards is it usually crosses a line and then it's just on for the entire game.
Yeah.
And these are a lot more, I don't know, maybe the first one's really easy, but the second one isn't. Maybe I want to try to time things such that I don't have to bargain this spot to save my 1 permanent for something else down the line.
Sure.
Which I think is pretty interesting stuff.
And Wild Slash, by the way, made a minor mistake there. Ferocious damage can't be prevented. Fiery Impulse is the one that deals a little bit more, as you mentioned. So this is the kind of card that just generally sees play. It's cheap. It's interactive. It has an upside. The exiling might come up too. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things going on here.
I also think that this is a really good spot to put power points because the incentive on red cheap cards is so much go to the face.
Yeah.
That once you get away from that, you can actually put a lot of power there, and the shocks of the world still have purpose because red beatdown decks are typically in the market for damage that can also go straight to the opponent.
Yep. Number 3 for you was the Little Rat Song X spell that we already gone over. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go to number 2 for me on my list, which is Harried? Helix? Spearguard. Harried Spearguard. Single red human soldier. 1/1 haste, given some beatdowns. And then when Harried Spearguard dies, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this creature can't block. Well, Sam Black, hope you're doing okay. We have a doomed traveler variant.
Yeah, this is where my interest and Sam Black's interests overlap.
This is where they align. Yeah.
Just attacking into things. 1 mana, 1/1 haster. Protection against the sweeper, quote unquote protection against
sure.
All the things that I love on a 1/1 haster.
Yep.
Yeah. This got, I mean, all jokes aside, this is like a lot of rate.
these cards just generally see play. Like, remember when Doom Traveler kind of was like out there and it's like, is this card very good? And it's like, I don't know. It's like annoying enough. It just kind of sits around, like, you know, it makes like a knucklehead. The creature types matter. It's like all this stuff. Like, this is a human soldier. Those things might matter. The fact that it makes a rat, like that creature type might matter. The fact that this has haste. You know, most of the time something like this doesn't have haste.
Yeah.
Right. So like, there's just a lot of good things going on here for 1 mana. Nothing broken, nothing bannable or anything, but just like, this is good stuff for a 1 mana 1/1 common.
I like to compare, you know, cards like ceilings and floors a lot when you're trying to make these comparisons.
Sure.
So let's compare this to Bomat Courier.
Okay.
Let's call Bomat Courier a red card for argument's sake.
I think that's a good idea.
Bomat Courier for sure has a higher ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
There's some games where it's just draw 5 and also dealt damage along the way.
Yep.
This card's never going to be that good. Doesn't work that way.
Yep.
But how often does Bomat Courier just not draw the cards at all? Just dies?
Sure.
A fair bit of the time.
Or just there's a big bozo on the other side and you can't attack.
Right.
Really do anything.
So
Yeah.
all the spots where your Bomat Courier dies, this card is much, much better.
Sure.
Now, we can try to compare the number of times you activate your Bomat Courier and what the ceiling looks like. How often does it have to be draw 5 to be more powerful than this card? That's where, you know, you have to kind of get in the weeds a little bit and feel it out.
Yep.
But we're talking about Bomat Courier. It's like a constructed staple.
Yes.
It's like a really powerful card. So even this card looks pretty like modest and just whatever kind of curve filler. The ceiling here is really, really high in terms of going into beatdown decks, especially because there's also the Sandblack sack tokens overlap too.
Oh, there's some value to be found.
And the decks that Sam plays typically, like, they do apply pressure. They have a number of 1 and 2 mana creatures, and they're kind of keeping you off ropes and having stamina against interaction, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's really rare that it's just, it's a combo finish all in one turn. His decks do a fair bit of like nickel and dime attacking.
Yep.
This card does that plenty well.
Yes, it does. It's a nice one. Your number 2 is also a pretty nice one. Another 1-drop here, an Embereth Veteran, single red human knight. It's a 2/1. Uncommon, and you can pay a colorless mana and sacrifice this thing to create a young hero role token attached to another target creature. If you weren't with us for a mechanics episode of the young hero role token, and how this works is if you control another role on it, put that one into the graveyard. That's if the creature that's being targeted with this young hero role token would like this. It's got to lose the other role that it had. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, if its toughness is 3 or less, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, well, a lot going on here for 1 mana.
Yeah. So and also a card I think is definitely a in terms of power level, my analysis is like 2/1 for 1 in red with upside.
The dream. Yeah.
So my explanation here is going to be pretty short, but I want to call out 2 things.
Okay.
One is I love the story here. This is so easy to tell.
Oh, a veteran.
Of just the, I'm retiring or I'm not going to survive this battle and you're inheriting my sword and shield.
Sure.
Just awesome.
Yep.
So good.
Yep, that's good.
The second thing I really like about this is there's, when people talk about New World Order in Magic, in the reduction of complexity and the increase in complexity compared from 2010, let's say, to nowadays, a lot of it is oriented around instants and sorceries and cards in play that activate at instant or sorcery speed. Because activated sorcery speed is definitely the most opposing player friendly. You're playing stuff at the same time you would cast your spells.
Yep.
So I kind of have that a sense that things could be coming anyway, and if it happens to be coming from a permanent play, it's not that different from a spell in your hand, even if I missed it. There's the other side of that, which is that can be frustrating for the players or feel like the game is being dumbed down or whatever, and you want people to have the opportunity for their cards to kind of work whenever, because that's where a lot of the fun emerges. This card does a great job of splitting the difference between those 2 things.
Sure.
So it activates it at instant speed. That's ostensibly the most complicated thing. But 1, it requires a mana, which means there will be shields down moments where your opponent taps out, you kill their thing, and there's no complexity involved there. You just move on. And also, the thing it grafts on generates an attack trigger. So even if I miss that this is, like killing this allows you to move the thing over, and I do it on my turn where like the instant speedness of it is coming up. We still have to get to combat on your turn before I feel the consequences of it.
Sure.
So even if I miss it, there's a pretty good chance that I could, okay, I missed it, but I can set something up here before I start feeling the consequences. A lot of the instant speed stuff is just immediately, it's like, oh, your removal spell fizzled. Or some terrible consequence.
Something bad has happened.
This, even if you miss it, is like, okay, it's modest, and I still have time before I feel the repercussions of it, because we have to get to combat on your turn.
Yep.
And also, it can't even go on everything anyway, because it's capped at 3 toughness.
And, I didn't think I was going to like this at the beginning, but I kind of do. The capping it is good.
Well, the story's better that way.
Yeah.
And also, attack give +1/+1. That's fun and it plays okay. But on repeat, it's sort of like, all right, yeah, I get the joke.
I get it, yeah.
It's I'm not getting better at blocking this thing.
Sure.
Sure. Can we move on with things?
Sure.
And I especially like it with the roll stuff because it's singular. So there is something nice about, I have the young hero roll on this, and then the one that gives +1/+1 and trample. Well, I'm going to suit it up on this thing when the +1/+1 trigger doesn't happen anymore because it got too big.
Yep.
But now that it's gotten big, I really want to put trample on it. Great stuff.
Yeah, put a new roll on there.
Yeah, new roll.
Okay. Let's go to number 1 for me. This was, by the way, my preview card if you follow me on Twitter/X. So I didn't expect for this to be the case, but this is just how the cookie crumbled. Redcap Gutter Dweller. 2 red. So it's going to be 4 mana for a Goblin Warrior that's a 3/3. It's got Menace. When it enters the battlefield, you get to create 2 1/1 black rat creature tokens with, of course, they can't block. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice another creature, maybe one of those rats you just made. And if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Redcap Gutter Dweller. Cool, so it turns into a 4/4. And exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. It's a lot of stuff going on in one card.
Yeah.
So you're, on turn 4, ideally, you cast this and you go, I got a 3/3 and I'll make 2 1/1s. So that's 5 power right there. 3 of it is Menace. Of course, the Redcap Gutter Dweller can block. The rat tokens can't block. And then if you'd like to make this a little bit bigger, you can sacrifice one of those rat tokens or something else. Maybe there's a Leaves Battlefield trigger. Who knows? And then this gets a little bit bigger up to 4/4 and above. And of course, maybe the top card of your deck's good. You get to cast that too.
Yeah.
Seems like a good card.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, you're getting a ton up front, and this has a pretty powerful out in the spot where the game drags out, like the board's too cluttered.
Yeah.
Of just looking at more cards and trying to find whatever your way to break through is.
Yeah.
Also wanted to call out, I really love that Menace is on this card.
Okay.
A risk that the 1/1 token experience has, especially when it's can't block, is the game's either a binary of I'm attacking you for lethal because it's uncontested. Either it's uncontested, you don't have blockers, or you can't block enough to survive.
Okay.
Or I'm not attacking at all.
Sure.
It's really rare to get the games that are in the middle of those 2 spots. Menace is a way of doing that. Because if I attack with my 4/4 Menace and a bunch of 1/1s, what happens is you have to double block the Menace thing, meaning there's more space for my 1/1s to connect and survive. And if you want to eat up the 1/1s, then a lot of damage is coming through.
Yep.
So it allows combat to be sort of tactical and multi-dimensional in a way that the army of 1/1 tokens is often not.
Yeah.
It's a subtle thing, but Menace makes this sort of stuff play way better.
And I think my favorite flavor aspect here of the Gutter Dweller is that friends with the rats.
Yeah.
They're hanging.
Yeah.
They're doing their thing.
I love that it comes with rats, but the last line doesn't call out rats.
Yeah.
It's like, no, these fellows just followed me here.
Yeah.
We're not like it's not like a team or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just
they're
outside.
And if you don't like it, I'll sacrifice you.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're questioning how my rats are doing, I'll sacrifice you, man. I don't care. Number 1 for you, it's not a rat. It's a mouse. It's the Raging Battle Mouse. 1 in a red, so 2 mana, 2/1 mouse. The second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast, and it has Celebration. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I think I know why you like this, which is it makes Celebration a little bit easier to do.
Well, it's also just really fun.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of fun stuff put on a card that's fun. This is fun to have and play.
Sure.
Fun to do stuff with.
Yeah.
That's great. I also really like the second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. And then there's sort of a generically good celebration output because you will trigger a celebration sometimes not by the act of playing a second spell. Mm-hmm. It will come from a card that generated multiple tokens or whatever.
Okay.
And it's nice to give someone something that's always useful on the back end when the front end is not guaranteed to work every single time, even though it seems like it's the same thing as celebration. It's not.
Yep.
So giving them a little juice to the play out of hand experience, but still nodding to, yeah, and if you're just spamming tokens or whatever, you still get your token. You get your +1/+1 thing. Really great stuff. So fun. So fun.
I can't believe that I enjoy how much this set has. And I know I said this earlier, but like the difference between mice and rats, it's so like subtle and small, but I just really like it that, you know, and like this particular one, this one is a mouse, but it's like, you know, it's clearly here to give some beatdowns.
I'm going to do, if you will,
I will
humor me for a moment.
I will happily indulge you. What are we searching for?
So I was searching for mouse. I found 2 examples of creature type mouse.
Yeah,
the Cheeky House mouse and the Raging Battle mouse.
Yeah.
It's cool that both of them, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but like what's the contrast between mice and rats? Mm-hmm. Both the celebration on this and the adventure on the Cheeky one, single target, and while the rats are multi-target spam.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like more singular.
Yeah.
While the rats are more collective. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but you know,
It's kind of cool.
I appreciate little things like that.
All right, let's run down our top 5 list here for each of us. For me, I had number 5, Hearth Elemental / Stoke Genius, because it is an adventure. Song of Totentans is what I'm going to call it. Number 3 is Torch the Tower. Number 2 is Harried Spearguard. Number 1 is the Redcap Gutter Dweller. For Patrick, it's Grabby Giant / That's Mine at number 5. Number 4 is the Realm Scorcher Hellkite. Number 3, he also has the Song of the Rats. Number 2 is Embereth Veteran. And number 1 is a Raging Battle Mouse. Mechanics: white, blue, black, red. That's 5 things done. We got green coming up next. Green has some cool flavor in it. Now, here's what I'll say about green before we call this episode a wrap. Green, when we did Throne of Eldraine, oof. Mm-hmm. Once Upon a Time, Wicked Wolf, Gilded Goose, Feasting Troll King, which ended up being like pretty good. Not great, but like good.
More of the same.
Yeah, like just so many good green cards that revolved around food. This time around, I'd say significantly different, and I think for the better.
It's a really tough challenge because of, you know, the original Eldraine. There's obviously an expectation that food's going to be present in green. Mm-hmm. You're coming off of Lord of the Rings, which again is more of the same there. So you can't ignore it. It would be weird to have 0.
Yep.
But clearly the first time around was an overshoot in both rate and just pure frequency.
Yeah.
Number of limited games that came down to decking, like all that.
Yeah, that was a big thing back then. I forgot about that.
Right. All, you know. So finding a way to do it, but learn from the mistakes of the past, not an easy thing to do, but looking over the spoiler, again, no games played, but looking over the spoiler, I think they did a really good job of doing a little bit of it, making a nod to it, making other synergies that connect to it, but not making the frequency and the rate nearly what it was the first time around.
That's red. Green, coming up next.